here we are once again. You will not believe the amount of things that this man does. You might have recognized him and seen him and heard him on either him singing for a live band called Slaves on Dope. You might have seen him interviewing superstars at Comic-Con festivals in Ottawa and in Montreal. You might have heard him on Showm FM. My God. Try to keep up with this man.
He has shared stages with the likes of Ozzy Osbourne, Motorhead, Korn, Pantera, Our Lady Peace. I could go on all day. And those are just to name a few.
You won't want to miss this. Welcome to Basement TV.
Hey,
Jason.
what's up, man? Hi.
How are you, my friend?
I'm good. This is fun. This is so nice.
Thank you, my
But
friend.
you always do everything nice.
Stop. This is not about me. This is about you. But thank you so much for doing our humble little podcast that we call Basement TV. You are not a foreigner to doing this.
No.
Usually you're the one asking the questions.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to return the favor and go down memory lane and ask you a few questions. And we're gonna go way back.
I love it.
Jason, when I first met you, I was working at Steve's Music Store.
Yep.
You would come in with your band, Slaves on Dope. You would come into the store with Kevin Jardine
Yep.
and the rest of the guys. You were doing band competitions. And I remember I literally got in a fight with a judge that didn't want to push you through to win that competition. And I was super adamant about these guys are doing what's hip and what's happening now. You guys aren't seeing what's going on. And they randomly picked, that's what it felt like. They just randomly picked some super dancey type 80s band. And you guys came out on stage just like you doing your thing.
Yeah.
And I literally, to this day, I think that person still, he will go unnamed, but still probably doesn't like me because of like how much of a stink I put up. Now, fast forward, you did another competition and that one you won. And you went out, and I remember I actually had to escort you guys outside to your cars because there were people that were pissed off that their mothers in the audience or their brothers and sisters and friends of other bands were pissed off because you guys won.
Yeah.
And I literally remember escorting you and Kevin out to the parking lot. It's like, guys, get out of here. Just go,
I
go.
remember that.
Go. So now we fast forward just a little bit because you guys really, really had this trajectory where you were like on a roll.
Yeah.
And you were relentless with like plugging the band, playing, and trying to push, no pun intended. Really, really cool. And you would push this to the edge.
Yeah.
Like there was nothing. So all of a sudden, you're in LA. You guys bust down to LA, did showcases, then eventually end up getting signed to Ozzy's new label. Now, not just getting signed to Ozzy's new label, the first band on Ozzy and Sharon's new label, Divine Recordings.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Well, I still remember all those contests.
Do
by
you?
The way. I remember we just wanted to try to any opportunity we could to play anywhere. We'd play anywhere. We'd play a bar mitzvah. We'd play a fucking store opening.
Winning aside.
Can I swear? It's okay.
Yeah.
Okay. we would play anywhere. And contests were one of these things that I don't know what it was about the 90s, but there was always a battle of the bands or this band, and we'd always lose. And then we eventually won one. Yeah. But I remember where you're talking about. I remember which band we beat, and I still see one of the members once in a while. They're like, "I'm really sorry."
I know exactly who it was.
That's what happens when you lose against a certain band and you're in St. Leonard.
Yeah.
But,
oh my gosh!
It's like, man, it was the block was hot. But no, moving to LA was the best thing we ever did because it was really we were at a breaking point. It was like, and it's funny because driving over here, I was listening. I don't know why I was listening to it, but I was listening to Deftones Around the Fur, which came out in like '97. Mm-hmm. And it was so influential on us and changing our headspace and how we approach music. And it was that show, that Deftones show at Cabaret on that tour, I think it was 96 or 97, that all of us looked at each other and said, it's not happening here. It's happening west.
Yeah.
And moving there was the best thing we ever did, because we all looked at each other and said, if we don't do this, we're not going to be able to continue. We crisscrossed Canada a dozen times. It like you said, like at the beginning, no one wanted to listen to what we were doing, and they didn't even care if it was hip.
Nobody got it.
No one got it. And, you know, the 90s for Canadian music was a great time when you look back. And all the bands we ended up touring with, and I'm still friends with now, that I ended up playing when I worked in radio, were great, but we didn't fit in with any of them. So we'd open up for Moist, we'd open up for Our Lady Peace, we'd open up for Tea Party, but we didn't fit. But they were all like, well, these guys are pretty good, so we'll have them open. But that was the 90s. Like, nothing had to fit. It all just went. But by the time we got to LA in 99, 2000, we were ready. And it was a trip. It was a crazy ride. Moving there was like being at a card table and just all your chips just going all in. That's what we did. At that point, we're like, it's all in. It's now or never.
There was no plan B.
There was no plan B.
Did Ozzy happen after the move? Prior to the move? After.
Yeah. It was because as a result of moving there. That's why we got that deal. We went there. At the time, we had a manager who kind of, I don't want to say he was ready to move on to somebody else, and he just said, "Look, guys, if you want to make it happen, this is where you got to go. Here's a couple of names. Good luck."
Right.
And we had a booking agent's name, we had a manager's name, and we had 2 shows booked in the States. We had one booked in Seattle, one booked in Portland to get us to LA. So we literally drove from Montreal to Seattle to open up for Motorhead.
Big drive. Big
drive.
show.
Showed up. We were
show.
We were first of 4. It was Motorhead, Dropkick Murphys,
Oh, wow.
Hatebreed, and us. We showed up to the venue. Got there the day before, 2 days before. We rehearsed at a rehearsal space. Showed up to the venue, and the club owner was like, "No one said you were on the bill." We're like, "But we just drove from Montreal." They're like, "Well, no, you're not on." And we just all looked at each other and said, "What the hell? Like,
How does that even happen?
How's that happen?" Word got to Lemmy. Lemmy came off the bus, went into the promoter's office and said, "These boys drove all the way from Canada. If they don't get 20 minutes, I'm not playing," and went back on his bus.
Get
Dang.
out.
And that was our first experience with Lemmy, and that was our first experience playing in the States, really. We had played once before in Vermont, but that was our real first U.S. show. And Lemmy went to bat for us. And it was like, at that moment, we knew the tides were turning for us. We knew that we were in the right place.
Right.
And then when we showed up in California, I mean, in LA, once we got to LA, it was, I mean, within 3 months, we were offered like 6 deals. It was crazy.
Sure.
I'm really curious because, I mean, musicians here, like up and coming musicians, like a lot of the time we look, especially towards like LA and stuff, we imagine the great lights.
Yeah.
You actually got there.
Yeah.
So once you got to LA, what was the path that you took? Like, how did you get all of these offers?
Well, we showed up. We had gotten a couple of people that we had seen in Montreal. It was actually Wayne Static from Static X that we saw at a Static X show. Said, if you want to go, if you're moving to LA, here's a number for someone at the Coconut Teaser. She'll give you a gig. So we just booked gigs. We showed up. We played Metal Mondays at the Troubadour. We played at the Roxy. We played at the Whiskey. We played all the shows we could, and just hustled our way in. And I remember 1999, we played the Ozzfest camping parking lot show in 1999. And then the next year we were on Ozzfest as Ozzy's band and Sharon's band. It was crazy. It was like, what?
From playing the parking lot to the main stage.
To being in the inner sanctum, if you will. It was crazy. And I remember we were the only band on the actual tour, because it was a tour of like 50 bands. We were the only band on the tour that were in an RV. Right. Because we knew if we took an RV instead of a bus, our tour support would last longer. And everybody would be like, why are you in an RV? Like, everyone's on a bus. Like, and we're like, no, we're going to be, humble Canadians.
It was smart too, because any money that you're spending back then from the label, you owe.
Yeah,
So,
and the thing is, back then was when our recording budget for Interest from the Main Line was $250,000.
Oh yeah, no, there was money falling from the sky back
then. We had sushi
then.
every day. We recorded at A&M Henson Studios. It was like baller.
But it was also money that you had to pay back.
Yeah, which we.
So
I don't think we had.
No. Of course.
You weren't thinking of that.
No.
Okay.
No, which is fine. We can look past all of those things. Now, EMI drops Divine Recordings for distribution.
Mm-hmm.
Now Slaves on Dope is left without a home.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like, oh, the label dropped us. It was literally the whole infrastructure in the house fell apart.
Yeah, it just fell apart.
So now you contemplate. It costs a lot of money to live in LA.
Well, yeah,
You know?
we had moved there, and almost a year to the day we went on Ozzfest. Like
Right.
we literally packed our apartment up, got rid of everything that was in there, the bunk beds we had bought, everything, and just got on an RV and just went. And we
Right.
toured for 10 months.
Right.
Then we came back home. And then we were home for a bit, and we would go back and forth. And then when we went back to LA to take another stab at it, try to get another record deal, all that stuff, we were kind of couch surfing. You know, we lived with our manager at one point in Thousand Oaks, and then I stayed with friends in Santa Monica, and that's when we really didn't have a home base. We were kind of like disoriented a bit. But yeah, Sharon and Ozzy, their deal ran out, and then they started doing the Osbournes. And that was it. I mean, that they
reality
became,
TV hit.
They became massive stars of their own right. So, yeah, we ended up. It was actually Jason Bieler from Bieler Brothers, who was the guitar player from Saigon Kick, who had a new, had a new label, and they signed us. And the day our record came out, they lost their distribution. It was just crazy.
Yeah.
Just one thing after
It
another.
was just one thing after another, and it was just the typical, music story.
Well, it actually just continued to decline with the whole music industry and everything changing.
Oh, 99, I mean,
so fast,
yeah.
It's like from 99, 2000, and then it
Napster.
was just like a whole flex of like things happening. Napster, and just like, oof, okay, where is the industry going? What is happening? At the time, it wasn't really hitting. Everybody's thinking like, oh, this is just like a little glitch in the matrix, But what I love is your ability to bounce back from a lot of these things that had gone on. And so Slaves on Dope, at one point, you leaving the band, Slaves on Dope, it was almost like kind of like David Lee Roth leaving Van Halen. It's like you could maybe find another singer, but you were such a focal point, of that band, and I imagine even Kevin just going, I don't want another singer, like if we're not going to do this, like let's not do this.
It's funny because when the way Slaves on Dope kind of ended, my girlfriend at the time was pregnant, and I got back after touring forever, got back home, and she was 3 months pregnant, and I said I don't want to do this anymore.
Right.
The way I handled it wasn't the most mature way of handling it. I kind of just pieced out and did, like kind of moonwalked into the bushes like Homer Simpson. I didn't really do it the right way. And because of that, our relationship suffered. And from what Kevin told me after when we got back together and, tried to take another stab at the band, he told me that they had approached, because we had a whole European tour booked. We had a new European label that Bieler had sourced the record out to, and they were really into us. We had gone over to France. We'd done really well. They had a whole European tour book for us. And that's when I kind of bowed out. And they had tried to get another guy to sing. And they had said, like, we'll continue. And supposedly they said, well, we don't want to have, if it's not the whole band, we don't want it. And that's when the other two guys kind of splintered off, did their own thing. Kevin started another band. And,
Sure.
I think in hindsight, I would have loved to have handled it better and been able to sit down, in a jam room like this and go, guys, I just can't do this anymore.
Right.
But as you know, when you're in a kind of democratic music state, it's very difficult to do that. And like men they can't really share together well and be transparent and open. And I mean,
Not back then.
Yeah. And even now, I mean, I've been in recovery, we'll probably talk about it, but I've been in recovery for a long time. Sure. And one thing that being in recovery taught me was to be vulnerable and to be open and to be honest and to talk. And when you're able to do that, it's a lot easier. But still, when you get anyone in a band dynamic for some reason, it's just very, very hard to be able to have those kind of conversations. So in hindsight, I would have loved to have had a better conversation about it. But I'm really glad that I did take a step away from music and see that there was a much bigger world. And it's funny because I find myself in a very similar situation now for the last couple of months of stepping back going, okay, there's another path that's coming my way and who knows what it's going to be.
Sure.
and that's just the way life is. You got to be open to those things.
How long did you take a step back? Because you mentioned getting back together and trying to.
As time goes, I get less and less clear on how long it was. But I think Kevin and I didn't talk for about 3 years, 3 or 4 years, maybe more.
Having to do with the way that things kind of ended?
He was upset. He was mad. And I understand. Like, it was very cowardly the way I did it when I think about it. But I think sometimes you have to just blow the whole place up,
Sure.
and it just was the only way I could really get away.
Sure.
And it's funny because I had no regrets. Like, once the door was closed on that, I was fine. And I did come back to music, and we did ended up, getting back together, writing a couple of records and touring. And Slaves on Dope still exists to a degree or another now. I mean, we're still friends.
There's still collaborations, which we'll get into.
There's still things that we do.
Yeah.
I think the idea of us going and doing it again like we did it, I don't know where that is, but, he's got a 3-year-old now. Isabella's almost 3. So he's at a much different place. Like, my kids are 19 and 16. So like, he's got a ride in front of him. But Kev's, one of my oldest friends and my dearest friends. And we've always, we've done so much together. But it's funny how, sometimes you need to take a step away to realize there's other things. And I'm really proud of what we did after. Like, we put out a couple of records. We did a lot of really cool stuff after. Sure. But but sometimes you look at yourself and like, I don't know, man, I'm 52. I don't know if I want to, like, put on camo shorts and scream pushing me anymore. Like, just don't know if that's me, and that's okay. It's okay.
It's you when you get back on stage. I see it's you.
Yeah. But sometimes you just, like,
I know what you mean.
You know what I mean? It's like,
of course.
I don't know if I want to get in a van and go tour and, like.
Dude, I haven't played live since 2008 was my last gig. And the only reason that I took on that gig was because I was getting paid for the rehearsal. They rehearsed at my studios and I was getting paid for the gig, and it was performing for Akon. It was the only way to get me to say, yes, I'll play
when it's perfect scenarios. And that's why people ask me, like, where Slaves on Dope at? And I say the same thing. There's always a version of Slaves on Dope that's ready to go.
Absolutely.
If the conditions are what we deem, and who knows? I mean, never close the door on anything.
No, of course not.
That's for sure.